Hi everyone. This story is so shocking and it's got such gravitas. I've actually written down what I wanted to say to open this segment because I wanted to make sure that I've put it in the right context and got everything down word for word. Because there's been another leak from the OPCW, from within the OPCW. The OPCW is the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. And it's of documents debunking now an already fully debunked government lie, which was the prelude to the United States, United Kingdom and France committing the supreme war crime of bombing Syria in retaliation for events which did not take place. I'm going to repeat that so you understand just how important this is. There's been another leak. This is the third leak from within the OPCW, the Organisation for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, which contains documents debunking an already fully debunked government lie, which was the prelude to the United States, United Kingdom and France committing the supreme war crime of bombing Syria in retaliation for events that did not happen. I better bet that statement up, hadn't I? By the way, this is true. What I'm telling you now is true. This is the truth I'm telling you. And YouTube is going to suppress me. They're going to demonetize me. They're going to hide this video from all searches if possible. It won't get any secondary uptick or anything like that. It won't get they will not include it in their algorithms. The only way you could find this video is by going direct to my channel. They will suppress this, and it's the truth. And the people who are telling you the lies about it, the so-called authoritative media, they'll bump those up in search engines and push lies and propaganda down your throats. I'm telling you the truth. I'm going to get suppressed for it. If I told you lies, they'd probably bump me up in the searches. But because I'm telling the truth, I get suppressed for it. So support independent media. Okay, so what am I talking about? Because I've got to back that statement up now, haven't I? Because, well, you might remember this. This was Dimmack. This was on I think it is the 7th of March, if I'm 7th of April. It says above my head, 7th of April. And this is the video filmed by the notorious White Helmets in Dimmack in Syria. And allegedly this was taken place after that there was a supposed chemical attack perpetrated on the civilians in Dimmack by Assad, the president of Syria. I won't show any more of that video because the last time I showed any of that video I got a top copyright strike. I know. Say copyright strike, a copyright mark. So that was the supposed chemical weapons attack. Now, after that happened, there was, of course, a massive rush to judgment by the authorities. The United States even put a press release out saying that it was Sarin, governor, and it was Assad that did it. The chemical weapons attack. This crossed the United States or Obama's line in the sand. And Theresa May, who was Prime Minister in the UK at that time, she quoted open sources in the Houses of Parliament, who basically blamed it all on Assad. It was Assad that did it, and it was the White Helmets that formed the aftermath of it, and all the information that they needed from these open sources that Theresa May used came from the White Helmets and from Bellingcat, or chief among them. Bellingcat is this online investigative journalist, citizen journalism outfit with Elliot Higgins in, that's funded by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office to basically, you'll see. They found that these chlorine canisters, it turned out, they changed it from sarin to chlorine, were dropped from a helicopter by Assad's forces. That's what they said. Now, my bullshit detector went off straight away at the time. First of all, whose side are the White Helmets on? There were questions, massive questions, even before this, about the White Helmets and just whose side that they were on. I mean, I'm not sure whether this was, a saintly organisation when it started, but it certainly you certainly can't tell whose side they are on at the moment, because if you speak to people in Syria who were fleeing other places like Aleppo, they came out and they were saying to reporters that no, the white helmets are with the terrorists. They work hand in glove with them. So there were serious questions about them. My bullshit detector went off. Obviously, we all know about retired Sea Lord Admiral West, or First Sea Lord, or whatever his name was. He was on the BBC saying it makes no sense for Assad to do this because he's winning the war, and the one thing that would galvanise the forces against him is him using chemical weapons. It makes no sense at all. The only people who would benefit from this at this time is the rebels in that area. So there were huge questions about it, and especially when you look at the rush to judgment as well. It was very iffy. Nevertheless, the United States, the United Kingdom and France went ahead and bombed Syria. Now, as far as I can tell, as far as I remember, nobody was killed in those strikes, which means that basically damage was done, and the only people who really benefited from it were the shareholders of Boeing and Lockheed Martin, because their shares went up huge the day after, I seem to remember. A few days later, that was on the 14th of April, the bombing was, a week after the supposed chemical attack. And then 3 days after that, we got the first reports from the ground from Robert Fisk, and I think a day later from Preston Sharp of One American News, as I've showed, and they interviewed people at the clinic where that video that I showed you just was taken, and said the doctors were saying no, it was hypoxia they were suffering from. There was shelling in the area, and there was loads of tunnels underneath where the locals obviously tried to stay safe. These huge tunnels, very dusty. When the shelling happened, it obviously brought up dirt and dust, got into the children's lungs, and that's what they were suffering from. Dust inhalation, oxygen deficiency, hypoxia. They were getting treated for it, and then some white helmets rushed in, shouted gas, poured water on the heads of the children, filmed it all, and then went. Allah. There you go. Propaganda construct. This is what was said a few days after that attack. Now, apart from Robert Fisk's reporting and Preston Sharp, in the media, in the mainstream media, especially lefty mainstream media, corporate media, state media, whatever you want, nobody talked about this. Nobody talked about it. The Robert Fisk report, I think, was the only one I could find at the time, you may remember. And it seems that there was, as I say, no chemical weapons attack there at all, let alone it was Assad that did it. Looking at the information that's come out now with this third release. Other than independent media, this wasn't reported on at all. It all stunk of a false flag. And ever since that, then, and there was not a great deal of information to back it up at the time, ever since then, it has fallen apart in huge chunks at a time. This narrative that it was Assad that gassed his own people just when he was about to win the war. 18 witnesses then visited The Hague, you may remember, seeing the video of 18 witnesses visiting The Hague. And you may remember what our media basically implied, that they were being coerced to lie. I've got that video. Here it is.
Are you happy to be here?
No comment. No comment, sorry.
Britain is concerned about witness intimidation, misinformation and propaganda distracting from the evidence in Syria. Dozens of chemical weapons attacks have previously been verified there, but this alleged use in Duma's still under investigation. Russia hoped eyewitnesses, including a small child seen in footage from the time, would now end the suggestion that the Assad regime was using illegal weapons and was responsible. How threatened do you have to feel to change your story and to deny a chemical weapons attack? And a question for you, Ambassador. How low do you have to go to bring a little child all the way here and threaten them?
So that was our media at the time, just not believing it. Not only not believing it, but attacking the people who were saying, no, this wasn't a chemical weapons attack. We were there. We were in that hospital. We weren't. That one boy was in the film. You may remember. You'll be able to see him. Be able to spot him in the video that I showed you. And that little boy said, no. They actually gave us some food afterwards because we were the stars of their little production. And our media attacked them as liars immediately. Our fourth estate there, that was Channel 4, our fourth estate, holding power accountable. Then, of course, we had the BBC Syria producer, Riam Dalati, who came out and said the Duma clinic scene, he can prove it was all used for propaganda purposes, before making his Twitter account, making it private. We haven't heard anything from him since. We've had the first leak from within the OPCW from whistleblower Ian Henderson, who basically said I was an engineer and those canisters couldn't be dropped from a chopper, and my report was missed out of the OPCW report. Here's my report. We've seen that document. It's a verified document. We know that OPCW suppressed it because it went counter to their narrative, which led to them committing this supreme war crime. He actually found that no, it wasn't. They weren't dropped from a chopper and most likely placed there. That's what his report found, and they didn't put that in the final OPCW report. Then there was the second leak with the email from within the OPCW accusing the hierarchy of doctoring the report, and we had a media silence on that, and the first leak as well. It's just media silence both times. You know, I think the second time, apart from Tucker Carlson in the US covered it, the second leak, and Peter Hitchens did in his blog in the Daily Mail. That was it. But now there's a third leak, and here it is, and it's from WikiLeaks, so we know it's from a trusted source again. The second leak was from WikiLeaks as well. This is Part 3. It says today WikiLeaks releases more documents showing internal disagreement within the OPCW about how facts were misrepresented in a redacted version of a report on an alleged chemical attack in Douma, Syria in April 2018. Amongst these is a memorandum written in protest by one of the scientists sent on a fact-finding mission to investigate the attack. It is dated the 14th of March 2019 and is addressed to Fernando Arias, Director General of the organisation. This was exactly 2 weeks after the organisation published its final report on the Douma investigation. Yeah, remember, all along the establishment, the media as well, have been pushing that it was chlorine. You may remember I showed you how the BBC said it was a chlorine attack in one of their headlines when the report actually didn't say that at all. And they had to change it to most likely chlorine. There's been so much of a rush to judgment here, and people have had to go back and change their reports so much. They're all desperate to push this government narrative that it was Assad that bombed his own people, when it makes no sense for him to do that at the time. I'll carry on with this, reading this. WikiLeaks is also releasing the original preliminary report for the first time, along with the redacted version that was released by the OPCW for comparison. Additionally, we are publishing a detailed comparison of the original interim report with the redacted interim report and the final report along with relevant comments from a member of the original fact-finding mission. These documents should help clarify the series of changes that the report went through, which skewed the facts and introduced bias, according to statements made by the members of the fact-finding mission. The aforementioned memo states that around 20 inspectors, 20, have expressed concerns over the final fact-finding mission report, which they feel, quote, did not reflect the views of the team members that deployed to Douma. Only one member of the fact-finding mission that went to Douma, a paramedic, is said to have contributed to the final version of the report. Apart from that one person, an entirely new team was gathered to assemble the final report, referred to as the fact-finding mission core team. So they replaced the whole team that was actually there. Other people wrote the report. This new team was staffed with people who, quote, had only operated in country X, according to the memorandum. It is not clear what country that refers to, except that it is presumably not Syria. It is possible, though, only speculation, that country X refers to Turkey, as OPCW has sent teams into refugee camps there to interview survivors from Duma. Of course, that's a possibility. But it looks like these people who wrote and contributed to the OPCW final report, apart from that one paramedic, never actually went to Duma. Don't you think that's, I'll continue with this. It's really important I get all this information out there. The author of the memorandum states that he was the one originally tasked with analysis and assessment of the 2 cylinders found on the scene of the alleged chemical attack. This was a task he undertook in the understanding he was clearly the most qualified team member, having been to the location in Duma and because of his expertise in metallurgy, chemical engineering, including pressure vessel design, artillery and defence R&D. He continues, quote, in subsequent weeks I found that I was being excluded from the work for reasons not made clear. Their expert, their most qualified person on metallurgy, chemical engineering, including pressure vessel design, artillery and defence research and development, their expert, they kept him away. Doesn't it seem to you like they're trying to come up with there's a preordained outcome here that they're trying to come to, and anybody that's going to deviate from that, they're not letting them anywhere near it, or they're kicking them off very quickly? That's what it looks like, isn't it? The author explains that he had frequently asked to be updated on the progress of the final report and to be allowed to review the draft, but was turned down on both counts. Quote, the response was utmost secrecy. Of course it was. Once the final report was released on the 1st of March 2019, it became clear that the conclusions of the report had changed significantly in the hands of the new core team, that apart from a paramedic had never been there, that assembled it in its final form. Quote, at the conclusion of the in-country activities in the Syrian Arab Republic, the consensus within the fact-finding mission team was that there were indications of serious inconsistencies in findings. After the exclusion of all team members other than a small cadre of members who had deployed and deployed again in October 2018 to country X, the conclusion seems to have turned completely in the opposite direction. The fact-finding mission team members find this confusing and are concerned to know how this has occurred. I don't find it confusing at all. Towards the end of the memo, he writes, quote, in conclusion, I must stress that I hold no opinion, interest or strong views on the technical part of the matter, nor any interest in the political outcomes. My interest is in sound technical rigour. The science, engineering and facts will speak for themselves. WikiLeaks is releasing supporting documents that back up these claims in great technical detail, including the original interim report and appraisal of the changes. So I just want to say my interest with this, my only interest is the truth. Sounds like his only interest is the same. Here's all the information you can see. There's the first draft interim report, and they've attached all the information. There's the original. The original email. So this is, this has blown the whole lie that we were told apart about Duma. And still, the media are silent. In fact, they're even worse than silence, because here's Alan Mate. Journalist Tariq Hadid joins Pushback Show. This is his Pushback Show to discuss his resignation from Newsweek after editors rejected his attempt to cover the OPCW Syria cover-up. He tried to cover it. So they're not covering it in the media, and even when journalists are saying, no, hold on a minute, we've got to cover this, this is a massive story, they're saying no. They're stonewalling them. Their silence on this is absolutely deafening. This is the story of the century. You know? This is the absolute story of the century, especially as some of the names associated with the white helmets have such fascinating stories. You know? For instance, there's the founder of the White Helmets, this guy, James Le Mesurier. He was found dead a few weeks ago in Turkey. He was the founder. He fell, apparently, from his apartment balcony and died. Apparently, it was a suicide. So who knows what's happened there? This article by Craig Murray suggests otherwise. He says he works in a profession where you can very quickly move from an asset to a liability. The sad death of James Le Mesurier. This is in the excellent Consortium News. Like I say, it's a big story. This is with, untimely deaths from people who founded shady organisations or charities. Here's some people who sat down in a secret meeting with the White Helmets. You might remember I covered this a while back. I'll cover it again. They sat down in a secret meeting with the White Helmets. This was at the Institute of Statecraft with the now infamous Integrity Initiative that I've talked on. And you look down here. Look at that. There's Isabel Oakeshott. You might remember she was the journalist who published the leaks that led to Ambassador, I think his name was Kim DeRoche, having to resign. You remember that? Because he was critical of the Trump organisation. She had some leaks from a 19-year-old 19-year-old guy who was a member of the Brexit Party, apparently. Just, come on. It's a targeted leak. And then two above that, look at that. In that secret meeting with the White Helmets, Pablo Miller. Does anybody know where that name's come from? Yeah, Pablo Miller. He was the guy who, when the Skripals were poisoned, a D notice was put on his name, along with the name of Business Orbis Intelligence, was the company he worked for, which was a company owned by Christopher Steele. You may remember him, the guy who wrote the infamous Steele dossier, or Pablo Miller. He was an ex-MI6 agent. He was an ex-GCHQ spy, along with Christopher Steele, and they worked together, and he was actually Sergei Skripal's, I think he was his handler or recruiter. One of them was one, and one of them was the other. But he was meeting with the White Helmets. We know from the Integrity Initiative. It's interesting, isn't it? And yet the media are silent, apart from Peter Hitchens. I think he's the only one, again, who's written about it. Peter Hitchens. Cuckoo for cannabis. It's not a silence, though, is it, really? It's not just silence. It's complicitness. They're complicit in this. Especially when you think that they're, at every step of the way, they're narrative managers. They've pushed them out front and centre to try and, do damage limitation. I'm talking people like Brian Whitaker, who get invited on Democracy Now! Come on, Amy. Come on. Brian Whitaker and Scott Lucas. Sycophants for the government who float theories for them, it seems. They are complicit in this lie, these people are. They are actively stopping the truth coming out. Like I say, I'm going to get suppressed on YouTube for this video. YouTube are not going to put it in front of anybody's face. The only way that's going to get shared is if you share it and put it in front of people. So I rely on you. Independent media do now. The Google algorithm is that tight. They are attacking anybody who's telling the truth as well. Remember, the working group on Syria propaganda and media, who the first leak was sent through, attacked mercilessly by members of the Integrity Initiative. You see how it comes full circle? People who are telling the truth and trying to get the truth out there, they're being suppressed and smeared and slandered by people in the Integrity Initiative, which, as we know, is a government-funded outlet. Patrick Henningsen I heard him say it once, my mate Patrick Henningsen. He said, our media in this country, they're not the fourth estate anymore. They're the fifth column. They're not there anymore to hold power to account. They're there to prop it up. And it's time for them, I think, to go. This is the biggest story on the planet, and they don't want to talk about it. Let's try and get it out there. They cannot keep this. They cannot keep the lid on this. Not any longer. This is an absolute bold-faced lie from the very beginning. I said it from the very beginning, and I've been proved right every step of the way. And you know what? It's not difficult. It really isn't. You've just got to be honest and pay attention. Which just shows you the people in our media, they are not doing it. That's why you've got to support independent media, because we really have got to make Orwell fiction again.